Hello to anyone who's listening and welcome to another episode of the Tell Talks podcast. I'm your host, Jess. I'm one of Tell's producers, and today I am joined by Stuart Allen, who is a senior producer for Derby Theatre. Stuart, welcome to the podcast. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Stuart Allen, as you say. I'm senior producer here at Derby Theatre in Derby. There you go, heart of the Midlands.
Sunny Derby, Barbados.
Sunny Barbados, as we're known as, yeah.
Affectionately,
Although
yeah.
it's not so sunny today, so yeah. But yeah, that's what we're affectionately known as.
Yes. So, did you want to explain a little bit about how, so on your website and everything, you are described as a learning theatre. Do you want to explain a little bit about how that kind of works in your relationship with the University of Derby?
Yeah, so as a learning theatre, we're owned by the University of Derby, although we are a separate charity ourselves. But what that means in terms of learning, that the degree programmes are taught here. So the performance programme and technical theatre are run from here. So the students very much get hands-on experience. So they're in and around a working theatre, as well as having their lecture time, and they use our rehearsal spaces to do their productions. They perform on our main stage and in our studio. So very much their course operates within a working theatre, and as teams we do work placements. They come and spend time with us. We go and talk about the work we do. So from my point of view, I do particular kind of a chat about programming and producing, and that side of the arts, casting workshops with our artistic director Sarah Brigham. So they're just getting a real hands-on experience of how theatre works in that professional setting. So that's the connection to the university. And then as a learning theatre, we're very much how we can engage our communities to really understand and break down those barriers of theatre. So we do things like Hard Hat Sundays, where communities are invited to come and see the kind of finishing touches of a get-in on our produced show. During tech weeks, we do things like final stages, where they can come and sit in the auditorium and put cans on and listen to what goes on in making a show. So it's all about how we, I suppose, dispel the myth very much, around theatre and what goes into it. So providing all of those real kind of formalised training opportunities that the students have, and then those sort of more informal working, our community to come and see how we work as a building.
Yeah, brilliant. It is a lovely theatre, I can attest. I'm a Derby girl. I'm from Swadlincote in South Derbyshire. So Derby Theatre has a bit of a special place in my heart. I like it very much in there. But I think it's great that you have this relationship with the uni, because I think you're absolutely right. There is this kind of misconception that you get your theatre degree or your drama degree or something like that, and it's like, okay, where do you go next? So I do think it is great that you do these kinds of hands-on
and
things.
I think that's the challenge, isn't it? People, I always say I graduated with an arts management degree from Bretton Hall, and you went in that course down so many paths that you go, I could have become a marketeer, I could have become a stage manager, I could have gone into development. Not kind of sure how I ended up in programming and producing. I think that's been slightly by accident, but I do think it is very much, I didn't get the opportunities that the students are given here to kind of be in and around professionals, or to work on a get-in for a show, or all of those things, to truly understand what it means. What does it truly mean to be a head of production? What does it truly mean to be a head of marketing, head of development? What does it mean to be a producer? I think I would have, certainly looking back now, really relished that opportunity to go, actually, that would have, I think, made my career path a bit more clearer as you go along the way, as clear as it can be in the arts. I think it's also a very fluid industry.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. Like, everything moves so fast, so yes, definitely. So I know you partake in RYTDS, which is the Regional Young... Oh, God, I'm going to get this wrong. Regional Young Theatre Directors Scheme, I think that's right, which is great. It's a great way to get in. But are there any other ways you would kind of recommend that people, especially people who are from outside London that are near to regional theatres, how you would recommend they sort of get into theatres and get a foot in the door?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much, I suppose, no, I don't suppose it is true. I mean, most of the people we've had through that scheme and other opportunities aren't necessarily always London-based. So I think it is, for us as a very important, is dropping us an email, and it sounds realistic to go, come and tell us what you're up to or what you're interested in or what we can do for you as theatre. And sometimes it's simply that. And for instance, and that might be that we're assistant director on a show, or very often we do kind of associate roles. So if we've appointed a lighting designer, we might say, actually, we've got some money for an associate lighting designer to kind of learn alongside and be mentored. So we are always seeking to kind of develop those opportunities, and we'll continue to do so. I think it's always about actually an introduction.
So, do you think regional theatres have it very different to theatres down south, particularly in London? How do you think those kind of working experiences compare?
I think massively, and I suppose for me, I look at my own career, and like when I graduated, I thought if I don't work in London, I sort of haven't made it. And I think that's how it was always seemed to be. And actually, I 2 months after graduating, got a job here when it was Derby Theatre, so no, Derby Playhouse, sorry. So
Oh,
I
back
was
in the
really
day.
fortunate back in the day, and I'm from Derby, and I was an usher here, and during my A level. So for me being back here now, it is that I've come full circle and come back home. But I do remember graduating, and lots of my friends on that course lived in London and went back to London. And I remember being that you have that scary moment. You're from Derby, you've gone off to Leeds, to university, to Bretton Hall, and then you think, oh, if I don't go and make it in London, if I'm never going to have a career. And I've interviewed for numerous jobs in London, never got them. I was always told, oh, you didn't have the experience, you didn't have the West End experience, which I kind of go, well, I don't know why you interviewed me then, because I didn't, anyway. But I do think it is different. And actually what I'm really proud of in my career, and when I talk to other people, is actually I haven't done London. I have never worked in London. I've continued to, yes, I was at Oxford Playhouse, so I have been south, but I think my career has always been really rooted in regional theatre, and it's really important. And I look at the work we do and our relationship to audiences and artists and the program we're trying to develop, and our communities, and I just think actually for me that was the right way to go, because that's what my passion now is for in regional theatre, and how we connect our theatre and the work we do to those communities, which of course you can do in London, but it's just a different journey, isn't it?
Oh god, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's easy to say, oh well, the work's in London, move down to London, but actually there are also quite a few people in London that are going for those same jobs, so it's not always like that.
Yeah, and that is the challenge. And I know I sort of go whatever when I remember I've interviewed for a couple of the bigger kind of commercial companies, and once I did get down to the last two, and I was in my early 20s and really excited that, gosh, I'm going to work on a big West End musical. And I remember I interviewed 3 times that week for this company, and had to go down, and when you're from Derby, this train fares, it's not cheap. I know we're talking about kind of early noughties, but it was still expensive to do it. And I remember when they rang and said, you haven't got the job, and it was because, oh, the other person had more West End experience. I think it really knocked my confidence to go, but how do you ever get your foot in that door? Because if on my CV, on my application, I never had that West End experience, and I've sat through 3 interviews where all I can tell you is the skills that I'd gained from then Derby Playhouse, from my degree, from the work I was doing, and it really did knock my confidence to go, okay, I'm never going to therefore make it in the industry. I'm never going to have a career because I don't have that London credit. But then, I really have learnt it's not necessary. I mean, great if you've got it, and great if you live in London and you have that career. But actually, I'm really lucky because I've sustained a career without having to move my life to London.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I think being from outside of London, it is easy to look at what people in London are achieving, perhaps at a quicker rate than you are, but you will have success in your area if you keep at it, and people love to help local people as well. This is the thing, so you just gotta stick with it, really, haven't you? But
you really have to sit with it, and it's hard and it's tough, isn't it? And I think I was talking to someone yesterday about I'm the only member of my family that had a degree. I think when I wasn't particularly academic, and I think even when I said at secondary school I wanted to go on to do A levels, I think there was a few teachers really surprised that I wanted to do it. And actually, none of my family. I mean, I think my dad did a school production but other than that, none of my family are really kind of arty and creative. So I was literally having a conversation with a young person yesterday who was saying very similar. And you feel you're slightly trying to break the mold, aren't you? And go, but this is what I want to do. And I kind of found myself and my confidence through doing drama at school. And my drama teacher really pushed me to do it for GCSE. So I think it's absolutely, you're carving out your own journey and your own path, but you're sometimes constantly reminded of your roots. And I do sometimes feel that. And again, I'm sort of repeating my point to go, because you haven't done the London bit, or you can't get a job in London because, you're the working class boy from Derby. And I kind of go, yes, you can, and you should try and go for it. But also, I think it is there's something for me about local, and particularly being back here, because, my family's here now, so actually that for them's more of a success that I'm back working in my regional theatre probably than I first thought about it. Yeah
definitely. I mean, it is nice to stay home and like appreciate your roots in that way, and kind of say, well, I'm from here, so let's kind of make my career here. So is there any sort of standouts for you over the years though, like productions you've worked on? Have you got any particular favourites?
Gosh, any particular favourites? I think for me, when I came back here and we did our production of Jungle Book, which was Derby Theatre's first BSL integrated show, I'm super proud of that show, to have produced it and worked on it, because actually that show, I'd never, I'd worked with deaf artists, but never to the scale of producing that show and learning so much. And sometimes those productions for me are a highlight, because I've learned. So actually my journey working with deaf and disabled artists has really grown, and my learning's grown from that production. And to sit in an auditorium where you go, deaf audiences from across the city and region and further afield from across the country had come to see this production we'd produced in Derby, with very often limited resources. We also don't have huge massive budgets to be able to do it. I was super proud of that production, and I think we're talking a lot about it, and it's because it's in your theatre, in your hometown. And for me, that was like, wow, look at this audience that have come to really embrace this production, and particularly for hearing audiences to really get behind what we were trying to do, and the positive experience it gave them, and all the feedback we were getting. I'm super proud of that first production for me, working as a BSL integrated show, and then what we've gone on to do. So yeah, that's one of my highlights.
Good. I mean, I love the Jungle Book as well, and like, what a production to take on! It's such a on such a scale.
Yeah, and the learning you're doing, I suppose that comes down to the learning theatre model, doesn't it? And what we all are doing in the arts, we're always learning. When I talk to people and they say, but what is producing? I always kind of start the caveat of going, I don't really know. Of course I know, but actually part of it is you're constantly learning, and you're constantly evolving. And certainly that show, it was already decided it was going to be produced when I arrived, and it was suddenly that thing of, right, we're going to cast deaf actors, and looking at their access needs and how you adapt to script, and working with a BSL creative consultant and all of that. It was just really a really fascinating, insightful journey. And then you go, actually that feeds you as a producer or anyone who worked on that show, because you're going, oh, next time we need to do it this way, or oh, we need to be thinking about this. So huge learning for me, as well as a huge kind of proud moment where I was really pleased.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you should be. It's a huge undertaking, and to have pulled it off too. I read very nice reviews about it. Is very impressive. But if you did have to sum up what being a producer is to someone who was maybe thinking about producing, what would you say? Because I'm sure you working in theatre as a producer is not too far, but maybe quite different to what me as a producer is. So how would you describe it to someone?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know if people have said this to you. I very often get described as like the linchpin, and I'm like, I don't know what a compliment, but I do sort of get it. And you're right, because I suppose for me it is being that central kind of point, that coordinator, that holder together. So that's holding a budget together, or holding multiple dates, or conversations with creatives, and wrestling with contracts and agreeing all of that. I think it's all of that holding the bits together. And I always say to people, one of the fortunate things I think about being a producer, particularly in a venue, is that you get to work with everyone across the organisation, from, you know, our head of production to our head of marketing to, you know, our operations and access manager, our learning team. You are very much at the kind of centre of a production, and that's what I love about it, and that's what's really exciting, because you're there and at all those layers. So, you know, it's Jekyll and Hyde, our autumn production. You know, I've sat and worked on budgets and contracts with our co-producing partners, and had, you know, budget meetings internally about it, to Monday, Tuesday next week, and the week after sitting in an audition room with Sarah we did a reading a couple of weeks back, so pulling all that together. So it's just that thing of actually being at every layer that I really enjoy, because you're in the process, aren't you? But really interesting, because I often think I'm also very lucky, because, you know, like you're saying, there is a difference between that and an independent producer, in the way that we have a head of marketing and we have a head of development. So, you know, those fundraising kind of applications and that bit are dealt with by them, and that's their work. And similarly, you know, when you're thinking about audience development plans and marketing and outreach and all of that, you know, you've got a learning team and a marketing team. So I'm also very much aware that actually, as the role of the independent producer is very different, because you are all things to everyone, aren't you? Where you are raising the funds, you are the marketeer, you are the production manager very often. And I think that there is a difference, and I am absolutely in awe of those people that can do all that, because I can do my bit and I can feed into other bits, but I'm very lucky that I get that bit, and other people can do the other bits.
Yes, actually. I mean, I do agree with you. The fun part about producing, I guess we're the same in that way, is just being there at every stage and actually getting to see things. Oh, crikey, can't talk. Getting to see things through to completion, getting it right from that like embryonic stage of, oh, shall we do this, through to suddenly you're selling tickets or your product's going out, you've got marketing. It all becomes real. It's like, oh god, like I helped do that. It is very fulfilling, I think.
It's interesting talking about a career highlight. I mean, I suppose one of the, I talked about Jungle Book, but when I had an interview for here, we had to do, your presentation task was, the artistic director wants to produce One Man, Two Governors. So your task was to present for 10 minutes how you would go about producing One Man, Two Governors. And what was really, I suppose, that journey, and that proud moment maybe, was when I arrived, Sarah had decided she wanted to do One Man, Two Governors. So we did that in autumn 2019. So that was really strange kind of experience to go, gosh, I wrote this presentation on how I'd do it. But actually, for a year and a half after I'd started, I genuinely was doing it. So I think, and you go on that opening night and you've got standing ovation. And I do remember then going, gosh, go back to like February 2018 when I interviewed and I talked about this, and here we are now, which felt really weird.
Yeah, I bet. Oh god, that exact
and then
script
you go
too.
back to
Not
your
even
presentation
like...
and go, why didn't I stick to the way I wrote it down? Because it might have got a bit
because you never do. You just never do.
No.
You get all the best laid plans always go to waste. You can make the most beautifully laid out, like project management Notion board or Monday board or whatever. It will never pan out that way. There will always be some kind of spanner in the works, and it'll end up being pen and paper, as it always does.
Because I also say to people, I don't know about you, when people say what is the secret to produce, and I'm also like, there's something about broad shoulders, because you need broad shoulders to be a producer. And I think also something about adaptability, because I think you have to adapt, don't you? Like one thing could happen and then suddenly it's very different.
Yeah, definitely. Like one day I'm project planning, and then one day, like last Wednesday, I got sent up Scarfell Pike to put a flag at the top. So,
Is
that a perk of the job? Who can be sure?
Yeah. And sometimes I always think, gosh, the conversations you end up having, or the moments where you're like, this is the most surreal experience. I remember when I worked for Dance 4, I had to go and TV, which is a local TV station, because I wanted to do a project about swingers, and it literally was swingers. So we were looking for people who kind of in the 60s and 70s were, I remember, sat on television going, I'm inviting people who were like in their 20s and 60s and 70s to talk about swinging, and it's going to be incorporated into a dance work, and my parents are watching this and I'm producing this, and how does this all feel? And it was one of those moments where you're like, oh my god, this is really embarrassing.
Yeah, I had that loads at uni because we, at the University of York, the Drama Society is housed in the Drama Barn, which is their like on-site venue. I think it's got about 40 capacity or something, but it gets rinsed. There's 2 productions every week. They have an open drama night, which is like a student work, and then they have the weekend shows. And I directed quite a few weekend shows. And I loved them. It got to the end and I'd be like, God, we have done something really good here. Then suddenly when your mum and dad's watching it, it's like, oh, I don't know. This is a bit heavy. This is a bit like, you feel like, it's like, God, I don't know if I want my mum and dad to see this, but they came nonetheless. So,
well, I know,
thank you,
I
parents.
remember speaking to him after going, I remember speaking to him after going, God, I've just been on television talking about like encouraging people who my parents' age at the time to come and be in a project about swinging. Just feel your neck getting redder as the camera's pointing on you.
Yeah.
Like, please stop. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we did, the first show I was involved in, I was costume design for Death of a Salesman, which was just like a weird time. There's a lot going on. And then I did X by Alistair McDowell. Do you know it?
No, I don't. No.
Oh, it is, oh God, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a wild ride and it's quite gory in parts. It's based in space and we managed to turn the barn into this like space station thing, and there's quite a graphic part at the end, like quite graphic violence, and I could just see like my parents like, oh God. But then all my flatmates very kindly came to see it. They all came to see my shows all the time. And so you've got these big lads in like puffer jackets and they think something's going to jump out at them because it's a bit horror-y. So they're all sat there like really frantic looking around. And I'm sat there like, God, sit still. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of them. Absolute nightmare. But hey. So we are heading towards the end of this episode. So now I have to ask you all the important questions. Starting with, in a film about your life, who would play you?
Do you know, people in the office always laugh at my answer because I always think, who is bald? Because I'm bald. And I always go, oh, it'd have to be Matt Lucas. Because that's literally the only bald person I can ever think
Fair
of.
enough.
Which is
Fair
terrible
enough.
because I'm always like, oh, I'm sure there's some like, I don't know, some great Hollywood A-lister who's bald. But literally I was like, oh yeah, it'd have to be Matt Lucas.
Matt Lucas, a legend of comedy, so...
Legend of comedy and the potato song that he did during lockdown. So, you know, there are worse people, but yeah. Or the football pundit that does, I always think of the football pundit that does Football Focus, and then I can never think of his name. So I'm like, well, it can't be him because I can't remember his name.
Oh, I don't know. Any Football Focus fans out there will know who you mean. But
yeah, know the name.
Until then, yes. So in the event of a zombie apocalypse, where are you heading?
Wow, where am I heading?
Yeah, I asked this to Nathan, who was episode 6 in series 1, and he said you want to get everyone out of a prison, release everyone that's in there, and then get in with like just a boatload of food and just stay in there. But I'm starting to think you want to head onto speaking of boats, you want to head onto a boat, I think, and just like, but then you run out of fuel.
Yeah, I was thinking I'm off to a desert island, and then I've just thought, how selfish, I'm off on my own, just going, I'm getting out of here.
But then you've also got no electricity, you've got no food, you might not have access to clean water, so...
No. Oh.
Much
Can you come back to me on that one?
Yeah. I'll expect your email in 5 working days.
Yeah, because I'm literally like, I'm just on a desert island and I'm watching it happen, and then I'm like, well, that's no good, I'm stranded myself.
well, you never know, it could happen. Did you see... it was like a BBC, some kind of nature thing, ages and ages ago, and it was about this like fungus that lives in bugs, and it makes them get to the highest point, and then it like explodes spores everywhere to infect everything else that's around it, and it's actually a thing, like zombie bugs.
Oh, sounds horrendous.
I know. So it's great to think that that's out there in the world. So I'll leave you.
Maybe I need to be at the top of the tree and it can't quite reach.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I'll be, holding on to the top of a tree.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll leave you with that thought. You'll be thinking about that later tonight when you can't sleep. Like, bugs out there. Yeah. So we'll start to round up. So where can people find either you or Derby Theatre on social media, or how would you recommend to get in touch with you guys?
Yes, so Derby Theatre's website, we have our staff page. Obviously, you can check us all out on there. My email is s.allen, ALLN, at derby.ac.uk. So, yeah, people were free to drop an email and say, I'm up to this, I've got this show, can you come and see it? Can you program it? Can we have a chat about directing? Can, any of that? We're more than open here to kind of receive people's emails and messages. So, yeah, happy for people. Check out our website, our details are on there, and then get in touch.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for giving up your time and coming on the podcast. And to anyone that's listening, I'll say tra. Thank you for watching, listening, either one of the two.